Welcome to the PIO podcast, a place for all things public information related for police, fire, EMS, and local government. An open forum to learn, grow, and develop your public information skills. Your host, Robert Tornabene, is a public information officer with over 10 years in the field and 27 years of law enforcement background. In each episode, we will explore different aspects of the public information officer profession. Weekly, we will delve into the field of public information by talking to other PIOs. So sit back and enjoy this episode.
This is episode 22.
All right, here we are. Good afternoon. Today on the PIO podcast, we have Trent Faris from the York County Sheriff's Department. Trent, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. So excited. This is fun.
Awesome. So you've been with the you're with the York County Sheriff's Department in South Carolina.
That's right.
How long have you had the position?
Been here starting next month, 9 years. So 9 years next month. I'll have been the public information officer here at the York County Sheriff's Office. Yep.
Very good. So what's your background? How'd you get into this position?
Well, it was a career that I kind of fell into back in 1997. I got out of the Navy and I was sitting in my truck in Columbia where I was, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life at Columbia, South Carolina. And I was sitting there, I was like, what am I going to do now? What would I do now? And I'm listening to a morning radio show and I was thinking to myself, I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do, because those guys are having fun, they're laughing, they're cutting up, and it just seems like a cool job to do. And that's where it began. I started working, going to school. I went to school at Winthrop University, got a degree in mass communication. I started working at, odd jobs in radio stations. And after I graduated, I needed a full-time job. So I was working part-time at a couple of radio stations, and a friend of mine who worked at a local cable station here in Rock Hill in York County said, hey, we got a spot open for a sports reporter / photographer. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, is it full-time? Yeah, full-time. So did that for a year, and then I moved into a job in Charlotte at a station up there in Charlotte, and I worked there for 7 years. And after 7 years, it got to the point where I had enough. And so it was lucky enough that a job here came open at the sheriff's office, and the sheriff at the time, Sheriff Bryant, called me up, and it was literally out of the blue. He said, Trent, how would you like to come and be my PIO? And I was like, well, yes, sir. It took me like an entire second to make that decision, because there's a lot of stuff going on at the station that was, one, going against what I believed in, and two, against my family. And it just lined up perfect, and I couldn't have made a better decision. The only other better decision I made in my life was marrying my wife. So that's where I'm at now. So when I was in the news, I was a MMJ / reporter, one of those one-man band reporters. And now that's what I do here, pretty much.
Oh, so that was going to be my next question. So you're a one-person operation then?
I am. I like to, when people ask me, I say I'm a MMJ PIO or a MMPIO, multimedia PIO, because that's what you do when you're a one-man show here,
Right.
or a one-man show if you're a female PIO. But Sheriff Tulsa understands the need for the public information officer. That's the current sheriff now at the sheriff's office here in York County. And we've tossed around the idea of trying to find me some help, whether from internally or externally. So hopefully here in the next, cross your fingers, a year, that might come to fruition. So hopefully I'll have some help.
How big is the York County Sheriff's Department?
We're a full service sheriff's office. It means we have an enforcement division and a detention division. So total, with sworn deputies and detention officers and civilian staff, we have about between 550 to 600 employees, give or take, whenever we have a good hiring cycle.
And what's the size of the jurisdiction?
We are we're south of Charlotte, North Carolina, if everybody's, trying to figure out where we're at, but we're like 30 minutes south of Charlotte, North Carolina. So we're like a bedroom community of sorts. Fort Mill, the northern part of York County, is a bedroom community for all the folks who work in Charlotte. And so we 250,000 people and growing. That probably has changed since the last census. I don't have that number, but yeah, it's one of the fastest growing counties in South Carolina, if not the fastest growing, next to Horry County down by Myrtle Beach and Charleston County.
Okay, very good. So that gives us some perspective about why you're going to need some more help.
Yes.
So Trent, tell me, give me an idea, a common myth that PIOs are float around PIOs, because that's something maybe you've been on 9 years, so you've kind of seen it all. But what are some of the ones that everybody thinks the PIOs are doing that is a myth?
It's funny. One of our sergeants, who's a detective, this happened a couple of months ago, but he was joking around, thankfully. But the common myth that most folks think is all we do are on social media all day. All we do is Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and that kind of stuff. But I've had to tell folks that no, that's just a fraction, a very small fraction of what we do. And so from just posting about whatever to whatever, social media is just this much, about a fraction of what we do. And so that's what I try to get across to folks, that, I was planning a blood drive today. So, I do everything from in between, social media to blood drives. I even call myself a wizard sometimes. We do, the website, and we are the media relations person, community events person. And luckily we have a community events coordinator, and we work pretty close together. But at one time I was that guy too, trying to come up with, hey, a school has asked for the mounted patrol to come by their school and show off their horses. And so I had to plan those kind of things. So luckily we have somebody to do that now. So, but yeah, everybody thinks I just sit here on Facebook all day.
All right. So this leads into this next question, because this is kind of an involved question. So you put together a documentary on an incident involving the ambush and fatal shooting of one of your deputies.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that incident. So why'd you do the documentary?
Thank you, first of all, for allowing me to talk about it, because that's really close to my heart, because the people who were involved are, and Detective Mike Doty, who ultimately lost his life, is a good friend of mine. And if anybody doesn't know, back in January of 2018, we had a shooting event where our deputies responded to a domestic violence call near Clover, South Carolina, in between York and Clover. And the Cliff's Notes version of it was the first K-9 officers who were on scene trying to find the guy who left his house, ambushed our K-9 officers and his team. Sergeant Clinton was the only person to get shot, but there were 3 other guys with him. And so throughout the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a call. This happened around about 3 o'clock on the 16th. In the early morning hours, I get a call from the sheriffs, and I'll never forget it. It still rings in my ear today, where it said, "Trent, Randy's been shot." And it's just like, Randy is a good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine, even though he's retired now. And it's just sent a cold chill down my spine. And I was like, this is my first critical incident. I'm prepared for this. I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to go. And when I get on scene, we're working. I find the sheriff. We get together and we start game planning like a good PIO should, and to inform the news about it. We've already informed the community about this guy who's running loose at the woods, and has already taken shots at our deputies and taken a shot at the sled helicopter who was flying overhead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, actually hit the helicopter. So, this guy's dangerous, and we're trying to tell the news about this at the same time. And at that moment, our SWAT team and a whole bunch of other people are in the woods trying to find this guy. And then this boat, this overturned John boat, little, aluminum boat, was overturned. And the sled helicopter was there, and he said, "Hey, I think there might be something underneath this boat. We have a heat signature underneath this boat. We need to go check that out." And so SWAT team does what the SWAT team does, and they go check it out. And in the middle of that, this guy ambushes them as they're trying to get to this boat. He's up underneath a deck behind a house, and that's when he shoots Detective Mike Doty, Sergeant Buddy Brown, and Sergeant Kyle Cummings, who is with the York Police Department, a municipality agency down the road, who's a part of our SWAT team. And so, as a PIO, most folks don't think PIOs should be, we're kind of in the cold zone and the behind the scenes kind of guy. We're out this way, but I can remember to this day how I'm sitting there with the sheriff in his truck, and we're trying to talk about something. And next thing you know, we have the windows down in his truck, and it's freezing cold outside, but we hear the gunshots. And he stops. He goes, "Did you guys hear that?" And it was just, we both bolted out of the truck. And then we finally get back into his truck, and we go down to the scene, and we're there. And then I see my friend Mike, I see my friend Buddy, and I see Kyle all in this. So in short, the next day, Mike Doty succumbed to his injuries. He died. And but Buddy Brown, Sergeant Clinton, Randy Clinton, and Kyle Cummings are all doing well today. But the reason why we did the documentary, to answer your question, is I can't take all the credit for the idea, because if everybody's listening, you need to join the NIOA today, because a year later, I went to the NIOA conference in Clearwater between that time and the anniversary. And I'm sitting there in one of the sessions, and it was the officer lieutenant from the Las Vegas Metro Police. And he was talking about, he was talking about the Mandalay Bay shooting. And that was huge. I mean, paled in comparison to what we did. But I was talking to him about, I was just listening to him. And he was talking up to, hey, we were starting to prepare for the 1-year anniversary. And this is what we did. And we lined this up, and we got, I think it was CBS or some news station, to do a timeline story about what happened, so we could just share that with everybody. And I thought, we can do that too. And so, like all PIOs, when you come from the NIOA conference, you're so jacked up on PIO adrenaline, you come back with all these great ideas. And I talked to the sheriff. I said, hey, I got this idea. I got it from this conference I went to. What do you think about doing our own video about the shooting leading up to the anniversary? And he said, Trent, I trust you, do it. And so that's where it came from. And I had to get a lot of buy-in. I had to talk to these guys. We had 80 plus officers and medics and dispatchers and so many people out there. I had to get the main players in on this. And I talked to them, the guys who were there with Mike and Buddy and Kyle, and the people who were with Randy on the track. I said, hey, I want to do this. I want to interview you. I just want you to tell me what your perspective was that night. And they just sat there. We set it up in a documentary form. I'm a big fan of the Band of Brothers movies off of HBO. And I was like, if you've watched that, you see they interview the actual Easy Company soldiers in a black background, and they just talk about what they did. And that's what I did. And the purpose of that was, I told the sheriff, I said, when it comes to the anniversary, everybody's going to want to talk to Buddy, Randy, and Kyle. I said, but Sheriff, that's not fair. There were so many other players that night and so many people who were there. And he even said, that's the name of the documentary. It's called The Many Heroes, because he said in a news article, there were many heroes out there that night. And so we got together and we put this together. It was originally supposed to be just an hour, but everybody was just so open to talk about their experience. It ended up being 3 hours and in 3 parts.
Wow.
Yeah. And when we finally put it out, we promoted it, we told folks about it. And I said to the news, I said, look, I know you want to talk to everybody. You want to do a big deal, but this story is bigger than a 2.5 minute flash in the pan on the evening news in between traffic and weather together. And I told him, I said, we're going to do this. If you want to use any of it, use it. You don't have, I'm not going to put any like of our logos on it. It's a black background and you can use whatever sound bites you want from it. And that was able to tell our whole story instead of that condensed 2.5 minutes that you see on the evening news.
Right.
And with a reporter trying to draw out the emotion from our guys.
Yeah, the emotion just poured out.
Right. Granted, reporters and journalists are good at what they do, but I knew that they would draw out the emotional soundbite of them saying whatever, and that's what they would use, and they would skip the entire story.
Right.
And so that's why I said, here it is in full. We're going to send it out to the community. We're going to send it out to the news, and we're going to just like share the heck out of this so everybody can hear the full story from beginning to end. And the beginning, and like everybody knows in law enforcement, every call starts with what? A 911 call to dispatch.
Yep.
The dispatch. So we started it out with the dispatcher who took the original call, and we ended with Mike's brother, twin brother, Chris Doty. So they were identical twins, and we ended it from dispatcher to Mike's brother. And so if anybody wants to go see it, just look it up, The Many Heroes on YouTube or anything like that.
Trent, how long did it take you to do the videotaping and stuff?
Well, I asked the sheriff in September. I started gathering people together in September, and it took the month of October to film it all because I had to work within everybody's schedules and work schedules and try to get them in here. And the whole entire month of October was the filming portion of it. And then from the end of October to literally the week before we put it on YouTube, I was editing it. So trying to mesh it all together and make it all sound good. And even to today, I was like, man, I should have done this. I should have done that. I shouldn't have done this with the audio. I mean, but that's just the perfectionist in me. If I can go back, I would fix a few things, but it's out there now. I can't do that.
So can you walk me through some of the quick steps that you did to come up with a project like this? Because obviously you're juggling schedules, but there's a lot of other working parts that are going there.
Every time I had a free minute, that's when I was working on it. I did schedule out time during the week of the times. I said, okay, guys, we're going to schedule you out for this 30-minute to an hour section. This is where you get to do. And luckily, thank goodness, we didn't have any big incidents happen in the month of October. But after the fact, the job started pouring back on, and it was just difficult to try to find time to edit. So every free moment I had, I was clicking back on my editor, just editing. So time management was a big deal to try to get it done. And I was worried there for a moment. I was like, I'm never going to get this done. I'm never going to get it done because stuff will just not stop happening. And so luckily it did. And we got it done. And yeah, it's out there now.
Now, did you use other people to videotape it, or was this just strictly your camera setup and your mics and all that?
It was just me and my camera and a couple of lights.
Wow.
I had a second camera, but it just didn't work out as well as I thought it would because the lighting was different for both cameras. Yes, I had two cameras, and I'm thankful enough that the sheriff has allowed me to buy some good equipment to do this on. But like I said, I wish I could have done some things different.
All right, very good. I did see the first segment, that first hour. I haven't seen the whole thing yet.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching it the other day. Very well done, by the way. Very well done. I think you did a really great job of letting them talk. I think that sometimes that's a problem with the reporters is they kind of they use words to draw out that soundbite instead of listening to the emotion that's coming up in the officers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, did you get any pushback from like legal or anything like that? Because this was probably still a criminal case.
Actually, we were lucky enough that the subject, the bad guy, we don't call him by his name, but um, our solicitor's office, the district attorney, for those who don't have solicitors, we have solicitors here in South Carolina, and the public defenders, they all work together, and he was already he pled guilty to everything. It was all done before we did it, which was unheard of, but he knew that he was in trouble and there was no way of getting out of it. And so that we were lucky enough that it was everything was adjudicated, everything was done with the courts, and we were able to do that. So yes, our attorney kind of our in-house attorney, she had her reservations, and listening to some of the things that some of the guys were saying, kind of, our command staff was like, "Ooh, I wish he wouldn't have said that," but it was real, and it was real, and it was from the heart, and what they were saying was not false. It was just them talking as if it was them talking to their friend about what happened.
Oh, very well done. Kudos to you and your department for doing that, because that's a monumental task for 5 people, let alone one person, to do it all.
I know,
So
right?
Congratulations on that. That's outstanding.
Thank you.
Very well done. Very well done. I to get that done and to put it all together, just try again. This goes to speak how professional you are and how serious you take what you do. So again, I can't say enough about
Right.
kudos.
I appreciate it because I'm passionate what I do, and everybody thought it was a little self-serving that I put myself in it. But I thought the fact that, that morning we had 3 news briefings the day after, that day after that happened. And I'd been up since 1:00 that morning. And then all of this happened. I just saw my friend Mike wounded. I saw my friend Buddy wounded. I saw Kyle wounded. I just went through all this. And then I had to go and do a news briefing at 5:00 in the morning, where I'm just worn out. I'm trying to still process in my own head what's going on. And the fact that I had to still deal and do my job. And like everybody else, yes, we have all this going on, but we still have a job to do, and we have to move forward. And I hope that shows folks the job that a PIO does is always moving forward.
Right. And I will. I'll put the link in there to the video, so everybody can find it in the show notes. So this way it'll be easy for them to do.
And I appreciate that, so we could keep Mike's memory alive.
Absolutely. Always honor those that have sacrificed, given the ultimate sacrifice. So Trent, let's change gears a little bit here. Let's discuss the importance of the PIOs monitoring social media to address misinformation.
Yep.
You had a particular incident recently that I noticed, but why is it really? We'll talk about that in a second. But why is it critical for that PIO to do that?
Well, the biggest issue with social media isn't the news media generating false information or narratives. That people think that's what it is, but most recently we've had just regular Joe citizen that has been spreading false information. I teach a class during our Citizens Academy class, and I always ask the folks in the class, I say, what's the first thing when you think of when you hear the word media? And what's the first answer they give?
Social media?
No, they give fake news. They say fake news.
Oh, fake news. Okay.
Yeah, no, well, I wish somebody else would give me a good answer like that, but it's always, somebody always blurts out fake news. And thanks to our former president, fake news is a mainstream word now. So
I didn't want to jump into that.
No. But then I argue with them. I tell them, I say, is it really fake news or is it fast news? And I said, have you ever taken a picture or a video of a wreck that you passed by on the highway and then posted to social media? And they say, oh yeah, I've done that. And I say, well, congratulations. You've just become a reporter. You have just reported some news event to the people that follow you on your social media pages. So congratulations, you're now reporters. And I said, right now it's feast, feast or famine. News folks and people just want to have, got to get it out there, get it out there. And whoever's first, it doesn't matter what happens, they have to be first. Not just
right. And it doesn't matter to be accurate.
It doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be a reporter. It just has to be somebody who's posting something and putting it out there. And so everybody on social media is a reporter. And so what they do is, they go and retweet and Facebook post misinformation. And the event you're maybe talking about is we had about a month ago, an event where we had a mass shooting where a former NFL football player shot and killed 6 people, 5 people, and then eventually the 6th person died of his wounds. So we had an event, but I tell everybody, I say, I hate Broadcastify. And if you don't know what Broadcastify is, that's a website where if your agency gives them access, they can listen to your radio traffic on their main channel. And literally we had a person who was taking everything off of Broadcastify and live Facebooking it. Every time they heard us say something, they put it on their Facebook page. And, even a deputy or an officer who is arriving on scene going somewhere, they're just getting secondhand information from dispatchers. Dispatchers are taking the call, they're relaying it to the deputy, and so on and so forth. And so this person was taking everything that was said and putting on her Facebook page. And so it was hard to fight that and tell people. You wanted to talk to them like a kindergartner. Say, stop doing that. You need to stop doing that because you're telling people wrong stuff. So we had to get on it quick, fast, in a hurry. And you had her on a couple of podcasts ago, Judy Powell. She taught my Master PIO FEMA class. FBI-LEEDA class. Mm-hmm. And she's actually called her the day after. I said, Judy, I needed to break the glass on the Call Judy alarm. So I had to call her up for some help. And she's great. If you don't know Judy Powell, she's great. And I said, we have people doing this. She said in the class, you have 3 minutes to seize a narrative. But now with everybody, listening to Broadcastify and all that stuff, you're dropping that number down, I think, from 3 minutes to a minute, because the delay on Broadcastify is a minute. So
Wow. Amazing. So I did see that you were putting out don't follow any other news source. We're the sole source of verified information. That's important. Go into that detail, because I think that as a PIO, we have to make ourselves the credible source of information.
Yep. And it's happened recently too. We had an officer involved shooting where people were posting, they were listening to Broadcastify or one of these apps, or listening to their friends on Facebook. And during our officer involved shooting, we had another incident that happened almost simultaneously, where there was 2 people fighting in a parking lot. And then our officer involved shooting, they were happening at the same time. So people were picking up that information and running with it. And they were saying, oh, you didn't, no, man, y'all shot these 2 guys in this parking lot over here. And I was like, and I had to go out there and tell them, say, look, we will give you the right information at the right time from us. Please do not, find other sources, out there from just your regular Facebook people. And like I said, it's like talking to a kindergartner sometimes. Like, just follow us, because we are going to give you the right information. We may not be first and we may not be the fastest, but we will be the most accurate. And I think as a PIO, whatever you put out has to be spot on accurate, no matter what. But you still have to feed the beast, and you have to keep telling people what's going on, even though you can't, mess up an investigation or, what's going on at the moment. So you don't be, I'd rather be 5 minutes late and right than 5 minutes early and way wrong. So.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So were you using any kind of monitoring software? How did you find out that this was going on over Facebook?
This is great. And it's taken me 9 years now, but the deputies and our staff here, when stuff major happens, they get to going on their Facebook pages and they go look at their social media feeds and they let me know, Trent, this is what's going on. Somebody's putting this on our Facebook page. Somebody's putting this on their Facebook page. Somebody's tweeting this or retweeting that. And I said, oh, great. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the heads up. And even though I am a one-man show, the staff here at the sheriff's office is on point when when stuff, major stuff happens. They start going to their feeds and start looking around and helping quell some of that. Now, it took 9 years to get everybody on board to do that, but it's almost become organically natural that they look for that kind of stuff for me. And I'm so thankful for it. And if you have the opportunity, tell your staff, hey, you got to help me out. I'm only one set of eyes here. I need everybody to go looking. So
that's outstanding. That's great that they would be able. They're thinking to do that, and that makes a one-person army into a 20 or 30-person army, and that's that citizen reporter coming to you, giving you that information. That's awesome.
If I have a moment, we have one more example. It's just popped in my head.
Go ahead.
About 3 weeks ago, I want to say something like that, because of one of these scanner apps out there, we had somebody who misconstrued what their app told them as active event, or no, they misconstrued it as an active shooter, because their broadcast app said active event : shooting. So they took active event shooting into active shooter. And so people started sharing that all over the place. And I had to get out there and say, whoa, hold on, folks. We have shootings all the time. Shots fired calls, this and that. People not hurt from shootings, people reporting shootings, somebody's dead. And then, but they saw active event shooting into, luckily I got on top of it quick enough where I went in there and I said, hey, look, no. There's not an active shooter. I know you're all on edge because of the Marshall Road mass shooting event. This is just it ended up being somebody died from suicide. They killed themselves. So, and sadly enough, but you have to jump on it quick before you got to address it before the masses go crazy. They will share it and like it and Facebook it and all that stuff.
All right. So Trent, we're going to switch gears. We're going to go to rapid fire questions here. Okay.
Oh, all right.
All right. So favorite music.
Oh, so I was thinking about this because I do have an eclectic taste of music, because you go on my playlist, I have everything from Metallica to Hans Zimmer movie soundtracks, all the way to Willie Nelson. And so, but if I have to boil it down, if I were on a desert island by myself and they said, if you can only bring two types of music with you, it would be my favorite band, Hootie and the Blowfish, and any kind of Carolina beach music. I'd be fine.
Very good. What's a life lesson that you've learned that you use every day?
Everything I've done in the past has prepared me for this. I go all the way back to high school, and I think what I did then has led me to here, because I used to do videos from an English class. This is back in the 90s when we had VHS video recorders. That kind of creativity and moving on. Even the stuff I did in the Navy has put me here right now. Everything I've done in the past has put me right here.
Awesome. What inspires you?
My kids, they inspire me all the time, from all of their talents, from soccer to dance to getting awesome grades, because I know they didn't get that from me. They got those brains from their mom. So yeah, just watching them be the best at and excel at everything they do, they inspire me every day.
Do you have a personal motto?
I do, and it's simple. It's good, period. And it comes from one of my favorite podcasts, Jocko Willink.
Okay.
And it's just, I even have a t-shirt that says good, because if everything is going bad, don't get bummed out, don't get stressed out. Something good will come from it. So, and my motto is just, if something bad happens, I'll go, well, good. Well, something good's going to come from this.
If you could spend a day in someone else's shoes, who would they be and why?
This was the hardest one but it would be a massive kind of people where I would want to be any astronaut.
Awesome.
just to experience space flight and see the world from orbit. So, and I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid, went to space camp and all that stuff. So an astronaut.
Nice. So where do you go, or what do you do when you need to reset?
The beach. If it's a quick weekend, the beach, either Edisto Island here in South Carolina or the Isle of Palms down near Charleston. If it's a big, long vacation, Disney World,
Nice.
if we can afford it.
I understand that. If you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell him?
I would tell him, I said, Trent, stay in the Navy, stay in the military, whether it's in the reserves or join the National Guard or the Air National Guard, or stay in the Navy Reserves, because I look back and I have a bunch of my friends on Facebook that I was in the Navy with, and I look at those guys, I'm like, that guy has retired from the Navy? Oh my gosh, no way. And I try to think that I would have been retired from the military by now and enjoying all those wonderful benefits. And I know it, I would say, hey man, it sucks right now, Trent, 18-year-old Trent, it sucks right now. But if you hack it out, the Navy will be the best thing for you. And I actually tried to get back into the reserves about maybe 12 or so years ago when I was still a TV reporter. One, it was a very difficult process. Once you're out, to get back in is very difficult. And two, they told me I was too old and fat, pretty much.
All right, so Trent, wrapping this up, anything else you'd like to share?
I always tell this to everybody, as far as PIO folks, I say PIOs need PIOs, not just for manpower help, but for mental health, to bounce ideas off of, to talk to one another, and train. It was most recently, a couple months ago, I was on one of these law enforcement PIO Facebook pages, and one of the people said, hey, does anybody have any holding statements, any stuff that I could use to, start my own? And I just jokingly said, I've got 36. Which one do you want? I said, I've got a whole bunch for different events. And then everybody's like, oh man, I'd love to see that. I'd love to hear those. Love to look what you got. And I said, send me your email address. I'll send it to you. And it just is a pipeline of people asking for it. And I said, now look, this is just a guide that I got from Judy Powell and from all my training. So you got to go train. You got to know your PIOs. And when you have cool stuff, share it, because you'll help out other PIOs. And we need all the help we can get.
Trent, that's a great way to close it up. That is awesome. So how can people best reach you and learn it and talk to you if they need to or connect? And I can put anything in the show notes, so you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, man. I was on Twitter back when Twitter was in its infancy. So my Twitter handle is actually Trent Faris. And I know a lot of people say, you shouldn't use your own real name for your Twitter handle. I said, well, you can find me on Facebook as Trent Faris. You can find me on Twitter as Trent Faris, Instagram, Trent Faris, LinkedIn as Trent Faris. But make sure you put one R in Faris, because I'm a 1 R Faris, and everybody always spells it with 2 R's. And I'd love to hear from you. And if you want to message me through one of those avenues, I will give you my email address, and you could become one of my good PIO friends.
Outstanding. I will make sure that goes in the show notes.
Awesome.
Trent, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's a pleasure having you on. You were one of the people I wanted to get on.
Oh, thanks.
So thank you for volunteering to do it. Appreciate it.
Oh, I love it. And I love the podcast, and keep doing them, man, because it helps. This is part of training. When you hear other PIOs talking about it, this is training, even though you're not in a classroom or something. This is training when you hear other PIOs talk about what they do.
I'm glad to hear that, because when I started this was kind of like the passion to keep, to just keep learning and keep fresh and help everybody else out there.
I love it.
Trent, thank you. And hopefully I'll run into you at one of the conferences. We can sit down and have a cocktail.
I'll be there this August, the NIOA conference.
Outstanding. If I can make it, I'll be there.
All right, brother.
That was Trent Faris from the York County Sheriff's Department. Sorry, it sounds like I was in a can in that interview. The mic, I was having a problem with it, and I haven't been able to fix it yet. So hopefully the next interview will be a little less echoey.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to contact the show, please email us at thepiopodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to get notified of the latest episode. If you are listening on a platform that allows reviews, please give us a review. We appreciate any review, good or bad. It helps us improve on each episode. Until next time, be safe.